Any remaining doubt that Sterling Marlin will be leaving Target Ganassi Racing at the end of the year, I think was pretty much eliminated when Sterling came to the Trackside Show last weekend. Give a listen.
So you definitely will not be at Ganassi Racing in 05, or is that still an option?
They ain't told me yet. I don't think I'll be there. No, the way it looks, and really hadn't talked Chip, so would be wild for one up top 10 in points.
Wait, time out here. Now, wait a minute. I see Chip Ganassi at the racetrack. Obviously, you're at the racetrack. Can you say, hey, Chip, let's go talk for a second?
I'm waiting on him. So, like I said, more or less a free agent this year, and got a great group of guys over there. Just love them to death, and hate to leave, but looks like the demographics may get you.
Demographics. Chip is back, and I have the same question as Larry. I mean, why haven't you guys talked? What's going on? Is there more to the story here?
I think there's a little more to the story, gentlemen. The story is where it's the end of a contract we did with Sterling, and I'll tell you, he does seem to be perked up in his driving this year, and nothing would make me happier than to see him win a race and make me go back and say, Sterling, we had some plans, and I got to change them now. I would love to change my plans and say, Sterling, let's renew your contract and let's sit down and do another deal. But there are a lot of people involved. People think that the car owner is dealing in a vacuum and he's the only decision maker in these processes. And we have a lot of things we look at when we look at drivers long term. And Sterling's been a great partner of Felix and myself for such a long time. And like I said, it's the end of his contract. Nothing would make me happier than to see him win a race and say, Sterling, I can't let a race winner go down the road.
So there is a performance issue and an age issue. He perceives an age issue. Is he too old?
I don't know that. I don't know what is too old these days. I'm really not sure. I mean, I think it has become a younger man's game. That's not saying I want to throw that all older drivers are no good, but there does come that question that other people would ask.
Coors want a younger guy?
The beer companies do. They market to a younger demographic, and but as in all sponsors and all companies, there are people within a company that love the driver, and other people in the companies that don't love the driver. Just the same with the owner. No. So I mean, everyone's all over the board on whether they like someone or not.
Note to Sterling, Chip may not be talking to you. Go win a race. That would be my suggestion. Let's follow that thread, if we may, because we got lots and lots of emails about your drivers. Will you make a driver change in the Target car soon if Casey doesn't improve? What do you expect from that team? I keep thinking Reed would be perfect in that ride down the road. This guy calls himself DJ Earthquake.
Yeah, again, we're about winning races, and if we're not winning races, we're going to look at the reason why, and we're going to try to focus on that reason. And if we have to change anyone from the top to the bottom of the organization, including the driver, is a possibility if we deem that as a reason. Casey made 3 years ago. We brought him into Cup. He made a great step last year, and we've seen him maybe step back a little bit this year. So I'm looking for some performance out of Casey and, throughout the rest of the season.
In general terms, is this NASCAR trend toward younger and younger drivers good for the sport, number one? And number two, where is the best place for the young driver to go if he wants to catch your attention?
Again, Dave, there's no one way to get there. If you look at David Stremme, who's in our driver development program, Ryan Hemphill, Reed Sorensen, these guys all came through ASA and, then ASA and then the ABC program, ARCA Busch Cup. We'd like to keep them in that. Again, now, you see ASA going through some changes. I don't know whether it's good or bad or not. I think the guys do have to get, and this comes from USAC, where they get a good knowledge. I think at a young age, it's great to get a good understanding of mechanical grip of a car. I think aerodynamics are a lot easier to learn than how to make a car work mechanically. So that's what I like about whether it's USAC or ASA is, you've got a car going at a certain speed that you do have to employ mechanical grip. And I think that's what I look for from a young guy. It's always easier, I think, to teach him the aero side.
Which of those three guys that you named will be first to Cup? Stremme, Sorensen, Hemphill.
Well, I think Sorensen and Stremme are head and shoulders above some of the other guys right now, just in terms of their calendar. So I would look for those two probably before any. We have Scott Lagasse back there, and Ryan Hemphill, some other guys.
You got more good young guns than you got available seats right at the moment. We will keep an eye on that. Still to come on this edition of Wind Tunnel. I'm going to try to keep Robin Miller and Chip Ganassi from putting on the verbal boxing gloves, or maybe I won't. And we're going to talk to the man who put the famed STP logo on the side of King Richard's Mopar. That became the longest-running sponsorship in racing history. Andy Granatelli also gave Mario Andretti that famous victory lane kiss. Stick around. We'll be back right after this. I'll do that right now. Let's go to line 3. Daniel is on the line from San Antonio, Texas. Daniel, you're on with Despain and Chip. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, Dave.
How are you?
Good evening, Mr. Chip.
Good evening.
I'm glad to be on. I love the show. Tell the sponsors that I'd love to see you on, like you were last year, every day, because it's really getting hard to get through.
Okay.
Got a question for Mr. Chip there.
Yep.
Wondering if there's any what your outlook on is. What's the significant differences between your open wheel and the NASCAR as far as sponsorship goes? I know you need tens of millions of dollars to go on both of them, probably more on the open wheel. But as far as sponsors go, do you see a significant difference on a challenge of trying to get sponsors to go from one as opposed to the other, or is it just trying to get the right man with the right money and to put seats in the car?
Yep.
And for whatever it's worth, keep Sterling in the car. He's good for the sport. He's good for your team. And if he wasn't hurt 2 years ago, he'd bought you a championship in NASCAR.
I agree.
All right.
Well, thank you, Daniel. That's a good question. I think, first of all, you should know that I think a NASCAR budget these days is exceeding an IRL budget. It didn't used to be that way 5 years ago. It's a little more expensive now in Cup than the open wheel side, just in terms of per car per year. But also the fans. There's a lot more awareness these days of NASCAR. So yes, it is easier in that respect to the people know what you're talking about. But on the other hand, there are those companies that like the differentiation, and they don't want to be on the same path as everyone else. They want to be on their own path, or maybe a path that's not so crowded or something like that. So, and there are companies out there for both. So I guess in terms of awareness, it's probably more difficult in IRL or open wheel racing. But in terms of the return, I think you can get returns.
Isn't there less pressure in the IRL because the engine manufacturers are, shall we say, generous, or is that an overrated source of
I think
revenue?
I think that's an oversimplification. I mean, they want results too, and and certainly they're involved a little more with the teams than in the past. But at the same time, these companies, again, it's a wash, I think, Dave, when you compare it to the Cup side. At least in my team, it is.
Let's go to John in Canton, Ohio. John, what's on your mind tonight? Quickly, if we could.
That's a truck race today in Mansfield, Dave.
Yes, sir.
The race was great. The facility was great for having a tornado go through there on Friday.
Yep.
And everything was clean. But that call that they made with Hornaday was absolutely the worst call I've ever seen made.
You felt that this was the restart call. They ruled that Hornaday jumped the restart, and you thought what? That he did not jump it?
I watched him every restart, and he made his restart at the exact same place every time. And had they black flagged him earlier, if they were going to do that 50 laps earlier, he still would have won the race. Got in the face to all Ohio fans.
You're say that last part again. I missed that.
I think it's a slap in the face to all Ohio fans.
How so?
We should have been able to see Ron Hornaday, the king of all restarts, win the Ohio 250. It's just not right, Dave.
All right, John, we got it. We appreciate the opinion. Note to Ron Hornaday. It's okay to jump it. Don't jump it by quite that much. Maybe don't make it quite so obvious. We need a break. I know he's just dying to get his hooks into Robin Miller.
No.
We've made him wait long enough. We'll give you that opportunity when we come back. Chip Ganassi, IndyCar owner, among other things. Robin Miller, sort of just bad-mannered big mouth in a moment. Be something that I haven't already heard, probably repeatedly, about Indy 500 qualifying today. You up for
All right,
that?
Dave, you heard it. We're gonna have a breaking story here on Wind Tunnel tonight. Tony George and AJ Foyt just met secretly under the grandstands here a little while ago, and I was listening in. And Foyt had Tony around the throat and said, if we don't get 3.5 liters for them Toyotas, I ain't never coming back here. And you heard it here first. Ganassi's got a Toyota, and they're all getting 3.5 liter engines, and they're wiping out qualifying, and they're starting all over again next week. 33 guys in one day.
Well done, Miller. I had not heard that anywhere else all day.
I told you.
Before we go any further, let me roll a 20-year-old piece of videotape. It is videotape of my co-host tonight, Chip Ganassi, in an horrendous crash in Michigan in 1984. Why would we show this back in the days when Chip was a racer? Couple of reasons. One, it's TV. We're always looking for an excuse to show a big crash. Two, much more important, Robin Miller says Chip was not nearly as nice a guy before his head injury. Chip, that is the kind of insult that you have become accustomed to taking and putting up with from this guy. Here's your shot. I owe you this. You busted your butt to be here on the show tonight. Have at him. Any way you want to insult him, and then we'll let him continue with his report. Gloves are off.
Gloves are off?
Absolutely.
You ready, Miller?
I'm ready. Bring it on, son.
I think you're the most knowledgeable journalist in IndyCar racing, and I want to thank you for how much you care about our sport.
You know, I hate you. I've always hated you. If you can't tell the truth, don't. Now, Despain, I want you to listen to this, David. One of the reasons that Ganassi and I have this kind of neat little adversarial relationship is we're both assholes, and we don't care if anybody likes us.
Adversarial? He just paid you the sweetest compliment I've ever heard anybody, and had to go to some trouble, I would think, to make up something like that. And look at you. Look how you're behaving.
No, because I used to roast him at his Christmas party, and Juan Montoya came up to me afterwards and said, that's the nastiest 15 minutes I've ever heard. And he said, but I was watching Chip, and he said he kept smiling. I said, he's a beat freak. He likes it.
My daughter's watching the show tonight.
I think your daughter's lovely.
From that type of language.
Yeah.
I know. The producers are screaming at me. I forgot it was cable.
I know.
Listen, I heard two questions for Chip Ganassi. One, do you really think your Toyota engine's the same as Roger Penske? And please be honest.
No, I don't.
And what can you do about that?
Nothing.
Dave, he answered a question. That's good.
He's taking all the wind out of your sails.
But I don't
Miller.
think it's no. Look. Hey, Roger's a great competitor, and he, he's getting the most out of his team right now, and my hat's off to him. I mean, he's doing a better job than we are. End of story. I mean,
what's the implication of your question, Robin?
My implication was we've heard all along that maybe Penske's got different heads and they build their own engines and nobody really knows what goes on there, even though there's a Toyota technician there with them. And judging, I mean, I don't think Scott Dixon's forgotten how to race, and Manning's pretty good, and Briscoe was a Formula One test driver, and they're just getting pummeled in these races because they're out horsepowered. It appears from the naked eye. So I just wondered, because Toyota keeps saying, no, everybody's got the same stuff.
well, that's like saying in Cup. I was in Richmond there, and everybody's got the same stuff there too, but there does seem to be some cars that are faster than others for some odd reason.
Yeah.
So he's not going to beat up on Roger for cheating. So what else you got, Miller?
I wasn't trying to say he was cheating this time. I was just implying that maybe they had some different things. Secondly, I tried to get Ganassi to answer this on the record the other day, and he blew me off. So I flattened some of his tires, but he didn't know that. Do you like Mario Andretti's idea? Common engine, common chassis, so at least maybe open wheel racing can have 50 cars at Indy again in the near future.
Well, I think hey, I was for common engines and common chassis years ago, and I think the problem with that, or the challenge there is, I think that seems to do more. That does more to bring kart the way of the IRL, and I don't know what it does for the IRL.
Well, instead of having this dog and pony show where you can qualify 12 times in one car, it brings competition back. When you drove here, you only got 3 attempts, and it meant something to make this race. What are you talking about? And you used to be kart. Don't give me that kart stuff like you didn't have anything to do with it, Michael Andretti. You used to be kart.
Now,
He's already answered that one, Robin.
thank you. I've already answered that one.
Well, not to me. He never answers to me. All right, here's my third question.
Never mind answering the second one. Go ahead. You got a minute left.
4 years ago, I told Ganassi for $250,000 I would be his friend and sit in his hospitality tent so he'd have somebody in there during the day. I now ask you, are you ready to pay me?
I didn't know we were going to talk about money tonight.
That's all Robin cares about. He's a desperate man.
Yeah, that's why I work for Speed.
Miller.
Okay.
We're
going to get serious. It sounded like here.
No, I think we're seriously out of time.
We're seriously out of time.
But I have the score from the control room: 4-1 Ganassi. Nice try.
Yeah. That's like nice timing and scoring. Sounds like USAC.
Hey, buddy, it was fun. We're glad to have you as part of this evening. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next week.
Keep telling the truth, Ganassi, for once.
Find another story besides Danica Patrick. I don't think she can carry the whole race on her slender shoulders. Thank you very much, Robin Miller. We move on. Yes, a lot has changed at the Brickyard, and a lot has not. I'm going to give you my take on the importance of the Indy 500, and then we're going to talk STP turbine cars at Indy and Richard Petty. Our interview with Andy Granatelli is coming up. Welcome back to my take on the Indy 500. Although there is justifiable fear that it may shrink to the size of an organ grinder's monkey, for now, the Memorial Day Classic remains the 800-pound gorilla of American open-wheel racing. And the history of CART versus the IRL provides all the answers, in my opinion. Remember when that fight started? CART's decision makers, the team owners, set out to show Tony George who was boss. They ran a competing Memorial Day 500 at CART member Roger Penske's Michigan International Speedway, CART boasting it had all the big stars. And when those stars wadded themselves up before the green flag ever fell, the US 500 was quickly toast. So what did the CART owners do? Well, they bought IRL cars. Why? To go back to Indy. And for the next few years, the month of May was all about how CART's vastly superior drivers beat up on those hapless IRL regulars as if that were really some sort of victory. And not long after that, lo and behold, those very same CART teams decided they'd field their IRL cars full-time, in fact, abandoning the series they owned and becoming the Indy Racing League. 9 of the top 10 in points, 14 of the 22 IRL regulars now fielded by team owners who 4 years ago were the backbone of CART. What is the consistent theme here? It is the Indy 500. Yes, the crowd and the TV ratings are down, but they still dwarf whatever you consider to be the nearest IRL or CART competition. Add those elusive elements, history and tradition, and there simply is no competition. I think the evidence is clear. However much a decade of infighting has diminished the greatest spectacle in racing, it at least remains the greatest spectacle in American open-wheel racing. That's my take. I'd like to hear yours. 866-W-TUNNEL, the phone number. WinTunnel@SpeedTV.com, the email. And I am particularly interested to hear my co-host Chip Ganassi's view. What do you think? Have I got that anywhere right?
Well, you know, Dave, I've listened to your takes a lot on Sunday evening, and I have to say you nailed that one. You nailed that one, I thought. The history, you skimmed over a few things along the way there in the history, and you know,
I only get a minute and a half.
Everyone's we did win the US 500 that year. I thought you could have plugged me there at least.
I could have given you a shot there, and because everybody crashed, you were no.
In fact, we pulled a spare car out and won with a spare car.
But
I had a great group of guys doing it that day.
My point is that there's Indy and there's everything else.
Exactly.
And when people say, we had a guy say, well, who was the email maybe? Don't give me that stuff about the sponsors. I mean, do the sponsors care about anything besides Indy?
Well, I mean, look, the sponsors, at the end of the day, you said that it's the greatest spectacle in racing. And at the end of the day, the sponsors are still the sponsors. And you know, they're our sport, fortunately or unfortunately, has a hunger for sponsor dollars. And we need them, and we certainly take their opinion in what they think should be done, how it should be done. Certainly, we listen to them.
Yeah, and my opinion is they want Indy, and the rest of it they take. What do we got here? We got anything that we particularly like? How about line one, Michael in Loretto, Tennessee. Michael, you're on with Despain and Ganassi. Go ahead quickly if you could, please.
All
Hey,
right.
Michael.
Hope to see y'all. Hope to see you, Dave, in August at Hurricane Mills, Tennessee.
All right. Yep.
This
Big
one's
motorcycle
for-
amateur national championships. What's on your mind, Michael? We got to move here.
Okay, just this for Chip. I was wondering anything on the rumor mill about James Stewart getting in a NASCAR.
Bubba Stewart deep in negotiations with Chip Ganassi for a stock car ride. I hear it all the time. What's the story?
Sorry to inform you. I think that's a rumor. I mean, I've met James, and I think he'd make a great addition to any motorsport he'd like to get involved in. He seems like a great competitor, and the guy likes to win. That's about as far as it goes. I've not had any more conversation with him other than that last sentence.
Let's go to Mater in Circleville, Ohio. Welcome, Mater. How's things in Southern Ohio tonight? And most importantly, what's on your mind?
Outstanding, Double Dave. Let me get right to the point.
Good.
I know you like that.
I do.
Long-time fan, long-time listener. I got a question, and then I got a follow-up with Mr. Ganassi.
Okay.
First of all, what is up with all these cautions in NASCAR anymore, people? Come on.
Set records for caution flags. Any opinions why?
Not my department.
Wait a minute.
Whoa.
You're the owner.
I'm a competitor. I mean, I got when they throw the yellow flag, I have to listen to them and follow. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer.
No take on that one.
I have no
sorry,
take on.
Sorry, Mater.
No take on.
Here's my theory about it. Too many guys running into each other. Okay, what's your follow-up?
It's just ridiculous. Follow-up. Prediction. Ganassi's going to be filling 2 seats this year. Sterling Marlin, he's going to let him go because he's a fool. The 42 car, Jamie McMurray.
Wait a minute. Ganassi or Sterling is? I think that needed
I think that was me. I'll take that
He
one.
got it. Okay.
You figure it out.
Second one?
That's why Cart's in the position it's in today. But anyway, Jamie McMurray, he's going to be driving the 6 car next year. You heard it here first.
All right.
Okay,
All
good.
right. And yet you plan to keep him as a long-term driver. We'll see who's right, the guy in Southern Ohio or Chip Ganassi. I'm supposed to make a smooth transition now to Pictures of the Week. See how this one works out. How about a selection from the Ganassi Photo Archive to kick off this week's edition of Racer Magazine Pictures of the Week? Good, another sponsor plug. How about it? Celebrating with one of our favorite people, Alex Zanardi won back-to-back kart titles for Chip. Race cars, Buckingham Palace, FIA GT at Silverstone. Apparently the Queen approves. Dominant Casey Kane moment in the NASCAR spotlight. He wins his first one. And Indy art, don't be fooled. That's looking down at the famed yard of bricks, the clouds reflecting off yesterday's rain-soaked track. You never would have figured that out if I couldn't explain it to you, right? And now the pick that wins a Tunnelhead subscription to Racer Magazine. Look, it's a monster truck. Tom Meents jumping over his own house. That's his old house. He built a new one. After he jumped over his old one, he crushed it. Dave Hinton captured the moment, and he gets the subscription. What's that? You want to see the video. Everybody wants to see the video. Some people just don't appreciate great art. Andy, see if there's time to stick the video in eye candy if we don't end up having to kill eye candy. Finally, a reminder, you can save on your Racer Magazine subscription, racer.com/SpeedTV. Click your way on over there. Tell them Wind Tunnel sent you. We'll see if we can find the video. His autobiography, modestly titled They Call Me Mr. 500, was already complete before he actually won the big race at Indy in 1969, thus the description of Mr. 500's ultimate brickyard success limited to the last page. But that is only a small part of the life story of Andy Granatelli. Son of Italian immigrants, Andy became a foot-to-the-wood American hot rodder, driving them himself. There's a rocket-powered dirt car, sold parts to other cars just like himself, and even promoted a post-war race at Soldier Field in Chicago, 89,000 sellout. He later turned his promotional talents to STP, and racing was an important tool in making the oil additive a household name. At Indianapolis, he was not just the sponsor, but a car owner, and what incredible cars. Parnelli Jones four-wheel drive Turbine in 67, and the Colin Chapman-designed successor to that car in 68, and best of all, Mario Andretti's 500 winner in 69. STP won again as a sponsor, Gordy Johncock in that tragic rain-shortened 73 race, but by then the famous logo had found a new home, and the company's relationship with Richard Petty would become the longest-running racing sponsorship ever. And with that, we welcome Andy Granatelli to the Wind Tunnel. Andy, it is an honor to have you here tonight. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Dave.
You have done so much in your life, and we're limited to not nearly enough time to talk about it. So let's hit the high spots, starting with STP. Through the 60s, you took that product from 7% to 85% market share, from 7 to 2,000 employees, made the logo as recognizable as Coca-Cola. Is there a 30-second version of that success story? What was the key? Why did it work?
It worked because I wasn't afraid to advertise, and we had a great product.
Simple as that. It's an advertising success story, but it's also a racing success story. Richard Petty, Mario Andretti, famous names teamed with you. You, the guy who drove that rocket car, the guy who got hurt trying to qualify for your first Indy 500 and gave up on becoming a driver. That love of racing, and specifically your love of racing, how big a deal was that in making STP successful?
Well, of course I loved racing, but I also recognized that auto racing was the vehicle that you could promote products through. I was the first one to put a decal on a driver's uniform. And I gave all the drivers in 1963 no-mix uniforms with STV decal on them. But up to that time, they only had short-sleeve shirts you used to drive in. They didn't have decals on cars except one or two. Today, when you see all those cars plastered with decals and all the uniforms, blame it on me. When you see somebody from a corporation advertising a corporation product, blame that on me. When you see auto racing on television, blame that on me. And Dave, you wouldn't be on television right now if it wasn't for me, because I started auto racing on television.
And believe me, I'm deeply grateful for that, Andy, although I got to tell you, I can remember at least one case when the STP logos I thought may have gotten a little out of hand. We have that photograph that we were kind of laughing about. Andy won't be able to see this, but he'll remember it. This is the famous suit with nonstop STP logos from stem to stern. It was a stylish figure you cut at Indianapolis. We joke about that. We do not joke about the cars. Let's talk about the STP turbine car, the Whooshmobile.
Let me tell you first about that. Let me tell you about that suit. When I went to Indianapolis and I gave all my drivers pajamas with that, and all my crew with the decals like that, everybody laughed at me. Of course, you're talking about it 35 years later, so it did work.
Exactly.
And the board of directors at the Studebaker Corporation said that they called me in the office and said, you're executive now in the public relations department, thinks you look kind of like a clown out there with one of those pajama suits on. You ought to have a dress suit with a tie. I said, yes, sir. And I went out and had a suit made out of the same product and put a tie on. But I wasn't going to change it because it worked, okay?
That's a great story. Tell me about the... Exactly. We remember it. You did your job. You made your point. I want to know about the cars. The Whooshmobile was such a piece of work. Parnelli Jones at the controls just blew off the field. I mean, it was clear nobody else was going to touch him in the 67 500. The thing stops with 3 laps to go. That was a very radical concept. Was it your concept? Where did the idea to take a turbine to Indy come from?
Well, I watched in 1950. I had General Cliff May put a turbine car in my Indianapolis car for tire testing for Firestone. So I had the idea in 1950. It wasn't my idea, but I saw it happen. And then Zink came along in the early 60s and did that, and it still didn't work. But everybody said it wouldn't work, so I decided I could make it work. I started in 65 thinking of how to do it and how to make it work, because the Novi was the most powerful car there. It had twice the horsepower of any other car. They couldn't go through the corners. So I wanted to get a light engine. The lightest engine I knew of was a turbine engine. The Novi weighed 800 pounds. The Alfie weighed 400 pounds. And the turbine weighed 260 pounds. Didn't use any water. Only held 2 quarts of oil. Didn't have any fan belts. Didn't have any hoses, any water, any radiator cores. So obviously it was a lighter engine. So I designed the race car around the turbine engine. The turbine engine was too long to put in a car, so I built side-by-side construction. And, of course, in those days, all the guys used to have to wait in the rear of the car, put 80 gallons of fuel in the back of the car, and the cars would go down in the corner, and they would get killed from spinning up and being so heavy in the back end. So I put all the fuel down the center of the car, down the center of the frame. And that's how I got the idea. I wanted to center the fuel in the car. I wanted to put the driver on one side and the engine on the other side.
Worked great. I need a break at that point. There's so much to talk about, and we'll continue our conversation with Andy Granatelli right after this. A lot more ground to cover, including winning the Indy 500. Stay tuned. Pop quiz. Who was Andy Granatelli's most famous driver? Due respect to Mario, due respect to the other great drivers, I got to say, most famous had to be Johnny Carson. Check it out, the host of The Tonight Show, driving the turbine car at Indianapolis. We heard he hit 160 miles an hour. I doubt there was any public relations talk in that. Andy Granatelli is my guest tonight. How in the world did you pull that off? How did you get Carson in your race car?
Well, I used to be on Johnny Carson's show quite a bit, and I just told Johnny, I said, you're always out there doing things that are crazy. I said, how about doing something that's crazier? I said, come drive my turbine car in Indianapolis. And he said, yes. We put him in the car, gave him some instructions. He went out and did a fantastic job.
Let's talk about the you had bad luck in finishing races with the turbine, as we've established. That actually happened a couple of times in a row, very close to the end, leading the race. But then, of course, the one time when you did make it to the finish, and that was with Mario in '69 in the famous victory celebration. You had to be on pins and needles, given what had gone before, wondering if that car was going to finish. Was it as nerve-wracking as I would imagine?
Absolutely. It was numerous times that I either won the race and to get paid for it, or the car quit in the last few laps. And then, so I was very nervous about that. When the public relations director came up to me and says, put your coat on, going to victory lane, I said, no. I said, wait till the race is over. I wasn't going to move until the checker flag dropped.
Is it true, you talked at great length about the ingenuity involved in the turbine car. Is it true that the powers in Indy drove you off? Too colorful, too controversial perhaps for the USAC establishment? The stuff you showed up with just a little too far out of the box?
No. The trouble with the turbine car only had 480 horsepower, and the supercharged Fords had 750 horsepower. The turbine car was a great car because it had four-wheel drive, very smooth performance, a lot of torque out of the corners. It could go anywhere in the racetrack you wanted it to. It's proven when probably qualified 166 miles an hour, sixth fastest. That's as fast as the car would run. But the other guys all had nitromethane in their cars and high gears and high revving camshafts and high compression motors just to qualify with. We raced just the way we qualified. So we went faster in the race because we didn't change anything. All the rest of the guys had to turn their gears down, lower the compression, take the nitromethane out, change the camshafts, on and on and on. So the turbine car would, and as you remember, Pranelli got out, dropped back from 6th to 7th or 8th on the start of the race, and then he passed everybody on the outside before the middle of turn one.
Did indeed.
Nobody ever drove there before, So the car would go anywhere you pointed it. The reason they banned the turbine car was straight ignorance. The mechanics over there didn't know how to start a turbine car. They were afraid of it. The owners were ignorant because they didn't want to buy new engines. They could have bought a turbine engine in those days for $30,000, and they would have run 300, 500-mile races without tuning it, overhauling it, or touching it. Imagine that. And in those days, we were blowing up 6, 7, 8 engines a day at $35,000 to $50,000 a clip. So, the race, I should say, at Indianapolis. So they just didn't know what they were afraid of it.
Let me take this conversation in a new direction. Your STP deal with Petty Enterprises. It became the longest running racing sponsorship ever, but I've heard that it almost fell apart before it ever started because of the color of the car. Is that a true story?
Right. We made our deal, and Petty started walking out the office, and I said, the car will be red. And he says, oh, no. He says, it's going to be blue. And I said, no, it's going to be red. So he started walking out. And I says, time out, let's talk about this. Well, we compromised, half red and half blue. And I want to tell you something. Richard Petty is not only the finest stock car driver that ever drove a car anywhere at any time in this world, but he is the finest gentleman, the most honest guy, the easiest guy to work with. You can't believe what a great gentleman he is and how easy he is to work with. He is the best, okay?
He was the king of NASCAR. At one point, you were the vice chairman of NASCAR. What made...
I started...
If you can tell me in 30 seconds, Andy, what made Bill France Sr. successful? What was the key to his success?
Bill France and I started NASCAR together, and he saw that 89,000 people at Soldier Field, in a stock car race I had there, and he says, boy, we got to do something about this. He was down to earth, he was smart, he was earthy, and he wasn't afraid to do things. He was brave. He was a great man.
I have a guy that's very appreciative of you and your company that's going to join this conversation when we come back after the commercial break. We'll get Chip Ganassi connected here with Andy Granatelli and talk about more of the days of yore, the big-time world of motorsports. We're back. My guest on the satellite tonight is Andy Granatelli. My co-host here in the studio is Chip Ganassi, and Chip wants to say hello to his old friend. Chip, feel free. That's Andy Granatelli. He should be able to hear you now.
Well, Andy, how are you? Chip Ganassi here.
Fine, Chip. How you doing, buddy?
Great, great. And Andy, I want to thank you again. You know, I've had an STP sticker on my car since 1982 up until this year, in fact, and it continues. And in large part because of an old friend of ours, Ralph Salvino. And Ralph had a lot to do with my career. And if it wasn't for Ralph, I probably wouldn't be sitting here this evening. And I want to thank you for hiring him. And I just wonder how you ever met him and how do you two ever get started?
I met him in heaven.
He was a pretty special guy, wasn't he?
He's a special man. He still is.
Yes, he is.
Let me ask you about the popularity of stock car racing. Did you foresee what we're seeing today when you and Bill were working on the early stages of NASCAR? Did you and he plan this far ahead?
Of course, if you think about the fact that I had 89,000 people on a quarter-mile track in 1948, what would that tell you? If you get 89,000 people on a quarter-mile track, why couldn't you have 1 million people on a 2.5-mile track? It's just that simple. And at the time we had 89,000 people at Soldier Field, you're only getting 120,000 people at Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Today, I said, that's what he looks like after all these years possible in all the different cars. So people got something to pull for.
So it's
if
a
you want to
brand
talk about
thing.
IRL, if you want to talk about IRL and kart sometime, I have the solution how to not only what happened but what needs to be done to bring open wheel racing back. I positively, unequivocally can tell you how to correct that problem.
Can you do it in 60 seconds? If so, you're on.
I can't do it in 60 seconds.
We'll
It's
just have to
impossible.
have you back. In that case, we're going to give Jim in Indianapolis, Indiana, a shot here. Jim, you're on the air with Andy Granatelli. Go ahead, and it needs to be quick, if I could, please.
I just have a comment and a question for Andy. First of all, as an Indy fan, I hope they never do away with the 4 days of qualifying or the 4 laps of qualifying. But also, Andy, is there any chance you ever come back to Indianapolis?
Not as a car owner or a driver, no. A driver, maybe, if they had a car big enough, but they're not wide enough anymore.
But that dream of driving never left. Why would you not want to go back?
It's too complicated, and too many rules and regulations don't make any sense to me.
All right. Well, that's where we'll leave it then. They need to simplify the rules. They need to make the chassis all the same and get lots more engines. And the next time we have you back, you'll solve this kart IRL problem for us. Andy Granatelli, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Dave. It's a pleasure being with you. You've got a great show. I watch you all the time.
That's one of the highest compliments this television show has been paid, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's see. We need to look ahead to next week on Wind Tunnel. Oh, the fun just keeps on keeping on. Dirt Motorsports CEO Paul Kruger going to be talking about his growing empire from the world of outlaw sprints and late models to the DIRT modified series. He owns them all. And my co-host, why, it would be the new owner of Eldora Speedway. Thank you very much. Smoke!
Hey, Ganassi, keep my seat warm, because next week it's mine. So Tunnelheads, send in your emails, because I'll be answering your questions next Sunday.
The island hopping continues for the next round of the World Rally Championship. Going back over 9,000 years, Cyprus is steeped in history. In its 5-year history, 5 drivers have won the Cyprus Rally, but this year, 3 drivers, Ronald, Solberg, and Loeb, can be the first repeat winner and claim another spot in the history books. So join us in the Mediterranean for round 6 of the WRC. The World Rally Championship, the Cyprus Rally is next, only on Speed.
For the record, Chip Ganassi does not own a rally car yet. You up for a phone call? Sure you are. That's why we got you here. Let's go to Andy in Atlanta, Georgia. Andy with Chip, quickly if you could, please.
Okay, real quick. Forget the sponsors, forget the money. As a pure racer, which would you rather win, Daytona or Indy?
Oh, wow, great question.
Great question, Andy. You know, you're making me make a call there that You know, I guess maybe because I've won Indy already, I would say probably winning Daytona would mean quite a bit to me now.
There you go, and he will continue to work on it. Time for another one, maybe real quick. James in Montezuma, Kansas. You're on with Chip. Real quick, please.
Hi, Chip and Dave. I got an idea to keep the speeds down instead of restrictor plates. You know, why don't we just not allow any ovals to be any bigger than a mile, or just lower the banking down like Indy, you know, just like they did back in the old motorcycle board track racing days. They did away with that.
James, let me give you a clue. They ain't going to get rid of Daytona, okay? We move on. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Postman always brings cool stuff. This week, this is neat. A prescient bit of motoring journalism. Bill Denman sent this along. It's a copy of an article from Hot Rod Magazine. And let me read you the quote here. It says, "It seems that the degree of sophistication and professionalism exemplified by prominent people in auto racing is on the rise. Jack Roush typifies that trend." Hot Rod Magazine, May 1976. That was 29 years ago. Since then, Jack has kept the reputation and added a hat. We'll be back with a house-leaping monster truck if we're lucky. And some final thoughts from Chip Ganassi. And if you think you're good enough for last call, you best be dialing. We'll be right back.
Wind Tunnel with Dave Despain is brought to you by the U.S. Postal Service. With more ways to use us than ever before, the U.S. Postal Service is working for you. And by Carfax.
Eye candy. It's so good and so good for you. We have not talked about your Rolex sports car team. Looks like your series champ, our buddy Pruitt and Luis Diaz may have their hands full with Angelelli and Wayne Taylor.
Wayne Taylor.
You got them covered or not?
I don't know. You know, Felix called me up one day and said, "Hey," he said, "I think we need to have one of those Grand Am teams." Is that what it's called, Grand Am? And I said, "Yeah, that's a Grand Am." And he said, "Yeah, let's do one of those." You know, and my hat's off to him. Yeah, he put the whole deal together, and I just get to run it. So
that's good. That's
we're
good
having
deal.
a good
So he is still actively involved.
Absolutely. I think he's a little under the weather tonight, and I want to send my best wishes to him. I think he's sitting in a hospital bed tonight somewhere in Charlotte here, but he's
quick.
okay though. He'll be fine, I'm sure.
Real quick, the long-term outlook for that series is NASCAR style sports car racing going to find its legs?
Certainly a lot of buzz about the series. I can tell you that, and we're going to be in it, and. I hear all the time, questions. I get a lot of questions from other racing people. They say, "Boy, what's that series? It seems so great. Competition. It's good TV.
Lots of cars.
And lots of cars."
I hear you're winning friends and influencing people. Tell me how the email reviews are going. Dave, get Chip off the TV. I'm a diehard kart fan, and it's hard to hate this guy. From Edward. I think that may be the most left-handed compliment I've ever heard.
That's a left-handed compliment.
But
Thank
it
you
sounds
very
like
much.
sounds like you're on the right track. Last call already. This has been fun. It's hard to hate this guy. Last call. Is Angela in Neptune, New Jersey. Angela, you're on with Chip. What's up?
Hi, Dave. It's a great show.
Thank you.
And Mr. Ganassi,
Yes.
you are not a fool. You are my favorite car owner, and that is exactly why you will keep the great Sterling Marlin in car 40.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much,
many
Angela.
wins ahead of him.
Well, I sure hope he does, and I
Good
sure
luck
hope he
to
does,
you.
and I hope they're with me.
Atta girl, Angela. Stay on the line, Angela. We want you to have a bobblehead. Send Angela a bobblehead. In order of their importance to you, 3 things that you would still like to accomplish in your life, racing or otherwise.
Nextel Cup Championship. 3 things in racing or in my life?
In or out, whatever you
in
you
racing
name it.
or in my life. Nextel Cup Championship. I want to watch my daughter grow up, and I want to win more races.
Win more races. Win, win, win. That's what it's all about. This has been fun for me. How's it been for you?
Dave, it's been great. Thank you very much for having me.
It's okay to bring you on and let Robin
Absolutely.
beat you up.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've always, Robin's good. He can take a punch, and so can I.
They tell me that they didn't even have time for the jet engines to cool off, so you can jump right back in and continue your weekend sojourn
Right.
around the world of motorsports. I know what you went through to get here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you
Get
very
the
much.
Briscoe kid in next week, and have a great Indy 500.
Thank you very much.
That is Chip Ganassi, ladies and gentlemen. The fun will continue next week. We've got Paul Kruger coming in. A lot of questions to ask that guy about where he's taking this whole dirt thing. But, yeah, send your emails for him, of course. But you heard Smoke say it. He wants your emails. He wants your questions. He wants your calls. Tony Stewart will sit in that seat next week. It is a wind tunnel we've been very much looking forward to, and we hope you'll be here to be part of it. I'm Dave Despain, Speed TV. What is it? Wind tunnel at speedtv.com gets the emails here. We'll read them next week. Thanks, Chip. We'll see you then.